Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the What If. Chapter 1. Reborn in Darkness. Ichigo fell to his knees as a large monstrous, masked creature smashed a fist overhead. The cracking of bones could be heard accompanied by his loud scream as the creature reached down and grasped him in its hand. The masked monster squeezed Ichigo tightly, draining the life out of him before finally darkness overcame him. 1,000 sensations could be felt in his final moments of life. After what felt like an eternity, he could see again, but things seemed different. His body was lifeless on the ground in front of him. The orange-haired teen stared at his body with pure disbelief. Am I dead? He shouted to himself, unable to comprehend it fully. Indeed, he was no longer in his body as he noticed a severed chain hanging from his chest. The hollow turned towards him again and let out a deafening shriek. It took a step towards him, and grabbed him by his orange hair before dragging Ichigo away. He tried desperately to resist as the sight of his body got further and further away from him. From around the corner he could see the terrified expression of his sister Karen, who watched helplessly as the creature dragged him away. Ichigo grimaced angrily. Damn it. Karen. I'm her older brother. I'm supposed to protect her. Karen looked as if she was about to follow them or call out to him, but Ichigo shook his head, making direct eye contact. Nothing was said as his sister began to burst into tears at the sight of watching the monster take her brother's soul away. Ichigo felt a plethora of dark emotions surging within him at that moment. I can't be dead. This is impossible. What the hell is this thing supposed to be anyway? What will Dad say when he sees my body? Damn it, I was too weak. I can't be dead. It can't end like this. No. He barely managed to look up as the creature retreated a considerable distance to a strange doorway. Ichigo had no idea what it was, but soon felt himself and the creature pass through the doorway. Darkness was all he could see as the creature dragged him further and further inside. His vision eventually adapted to the dark outlines of the darkness, and it appeared as if he were in some sort of forest. That was last thing he remembered as this hollow consumed him entirely. Sometime later, strange visions were all Ichigo could see as he felt an emptiness consume his humanity. He had no idea who he was or what he was anymore. Visions of an orange-haired human flashed throughout his mind. This creature was sitting in a small room at some type of desk looking out the window. Who is he? He finally thought as a moment of clarity surged through his otherwise mindless thoughts. Suddenly hundreds of different visions flooded through him all at once. Some were of people, animals, and strange masked creatures. He felt as if he was simultaneously remembering all of these beings. No, they're us. We're one. His clarity quickly vanished as he could no longer focus on one particular memory. This continued for an unknown period of time until a vision of the orange-haired person came back to him. This time, he saw the person's soul. As he focused on the hollow hole in the orange-haired human's chest, his mind quickly felt a commanding affinity for this individual. Why do we remember this one more than the others? His fragmented mind thought randomly. As he continued to stare at the orange-haired person, he noticed the soul look at him. His eyes were pure black with yellow irises, and they had a sickening charisma about them. He's me, Ichigo finally thought as if a revelation struck him. Not long after, his vision went black and he fell into a slumber. He awoke later in darkness, not fully aware of where he was or who he was, but memories of the orange-haired person were the only clear thought he could focus on. Nevertheless, he felt more awareness than before as he could now think more clearly. Where am I? Looking around, confusion overwhelmed his senses. What was I doing? Have I always been here? He trailed around and soon noticed many strange creatures surrounding him. They all looked identical in appearance, being monstrously large in tattered black with strange white masks on their faces. Upon seeing them, he immediately remembered the strange creature that attacked him and flashes of the events leading up to his arrival. Ichigo cocked his head. That was me, but who am I? What was my name? Suddenly, a voice caught his attention. You there, Jillian? Get in line. We're going to the world of the living to feast. Ichigo looked down at a smaller masked creature with an evident curiosity. The smaller hollow grinned at his reaction. Oh, what's this? A thinker. Ha, it's been a while since I've seen a unique Jillian. Usually the thinkers look pretty different, but you're completely different. Your robe is white and those red markings on your mask, interesting. Not to mention, those horns. Ichigo was unable to speak when he tried, and instead simply let out a loud shriek. The smaller hollow laughed at him. There's no need for you to speak. You will simply listen, White Jillian. You're a Manos Grande, and you answer to me. The Jillian Ichigo simply stared at him as he felt his mind go blank. The smaller hollow grinned at him enthusiastically. I should probably kill you, before you go on a feeding frenzy, but I've got this feeling about you. Perhaps you would become strong if I allowed you to become one of the Ajukas. Ichigo cocked his head to signify confusion, causing the Ajuka to grin. You're more cognitive than most unique Jillians. You're nowhere near evolution, yet you already possess distinguishable features. You must have been born from a very powerful soul then. The white Jillian Ichigo nodded his head, prompting the Ajuka to grin enthusiastically. Maybe I should just eat you, and become one step closer to a Vasto Lord. Pure instinct seemed to take over as Ichigo charged a massive red beam in his mouth. The smaller hollow laughed at his display. You think you can challenge me already? Ha! You should mind your place, Jillian. You'll need to become an Ajuka first if you wish to fight me. Without hesitation, the Sero fired from Ichigo's mouth towards the smaller hollow. It quickly countered with one of its own, creating a flashy stalemate. Afterwards, the smaller hollow seemed surprised. It would seem our Seros are evenly matched. You are very strong, especially for a Jillian. I'll spare you then, White Jillian. You will make a great addition to my army. Ichigo didn't seem to process much as he simply accepted what the other hollow was saying. The Ajuka pointed his clawed hand towards the other Manos Grandes. As he fell in line, Ichigo felt the smaller hollow land on his shoulder. I think I'm going to call you White. We have much to do in the world of the living. I'm going to need your help in case a bunch of pesky Shinigamis appear. The nearly mindless Jillians all filed together as they approached a massive Garganta. The Ajuka made Ichigo go through first. After a brief stroll through the darkness, he instinctively reached up and ripped an opening into the world of the living. Upon stepping through, the Ajuka immediately locked onto a powerful source of Reiatsu. That way, Jillians. That Shinigami's soul is mine. Ichigo didn't have the full capacity to comprehend his current location, but he knew it was not where he had previously lived as a human. Not much time passed before a black-clothed individual landed in front of them. The lone figure drew a sword and stared them down. These people are under my protection, hollows. The Ajuka on Ichigo's back laughed maniacally. That's fine, because we're here for your soul, not theirs. The Shinigami's eyes widened as the Ajuka held up his hand. Jillians, fire your Seros. Instinctively, Ichigo did what he was told as he and all of the other Manos Grandes charged red beams in their mouths. His, however, was nearly triple the size of the others, which clearly worried the Shinigami. He desperately flash-stepped to avoid the attack. All of the Seros launched towards the man, but he outmaneuvered them as he came straight for the Ajuka on Ichigo's shoulder. The man held up his sword and sighed. I guess I'll have to use my Shikai to beat you. The Ajuka reluctantly jumped off and began to fight the man. Ichigo took this time to examine this Shinigami fully. His head was bald and his weapon was now some sort of polearm. He seemed to struggle against the Ajuka before a bunch of his allies arrived. Many began to engage the Manos Grande army, but one in particular caught Ichigo's attention. This one was adorned in white instead of black and had strange spiky hair. The man grinned wickedly at the sight of carnage before quickly leaping into the fray, slicing countless Jillians to pieces. It didn't take long for this Shinigami to notice Ichigo as he came barreling straight for him. On his back a strange pink-haired girl seemed to be cheering. Oh look! A white one. Kill the white Jillian Kenny. What do ya think I'm doing? That one's obviously the most powerful anyway. Kenpachi replied nonchalantly. Kenpachi stopped his advance, however, when the sight of Akaku on the ground caught his attention. The bald man seemed to be ineffective in defeating the Ajuka, causing Kenpachi to grin enthusiastically. So there's the leader of the bunch. Guess I'll take care of him first. He laughed. However, before he could reach the hollow, Ichigo unexpectedly grabbed him and threw him to the ground. Almost every Shinigami present stopped what they were doing as they could barely believe a Jillian had just cheap shot their captain. Kenpachi quickly regained his bearings and laughed as his attention turned towards Ichigo. Haha. I've never seen a Manos Grande move that fast before, maybe he wants to fight me. For some reason, Ichigo felt intense hatred for this creature and charged a Sero. This one was twice as large as the one he had done previously. Kenpachi's eyes widened excitedly. That Sero is enormous. Come on, give me your best shot, Hollow. Ichigo fired the powerful beam in an arc, slicing countless buildings apart and decimating half the landscape. Kenpachi blocked the Sero with his blade, slicing it in half before laughing. Is that all you got? Before he could finish his taunt, the Ijuka blindsided Zaraki with a sharp swiped claw and followed up with a Sero of his own. Despite taking the brunt of the attack, the Squad 11 captain appeared fine. The Ijuka seemed worried afterward. What is the meaning of this? How are you still alive? Ha, you think some pathetic hollow like you could kill me? I'm not even trying, he said amusedly. Akaku quickly recovered and flanked the Ijuka with a wide grin. That's Captain of Squad 11, Kenpachi Zaraki. You are no match for him, Hollow, let alone me. The Ijuka growled angrily. A Captain Shinigami. I'm getting bored of this already. These guys aren't even that strong. I can't believe they sent all of Squad 11 to fight these weaklings, the captain sighed carelessly. Akaku grinned. Let me take care of him, Captain. This guy has been killing our men out here for months. This is personal. The Ijuka scowled angrily. You damn Shinigami need to just stay out of our way. You're deluded if you think you can take on the Soul Society. Akaku countered. I'm not going to watch you embarrass yourself anymore. Let's just get this over with so we can leave, Zaraki said with boredom rising in his voice. He gripped his sword tightly as he swooped in and slashed the Ijuka's arm off. The smaller Hollow grimaced in agony, releasing a loud hollow shriek. Ichigo watched his fellow Hollow with a strange emotion surging within him. He couldn't describe what it was or understand it, but the sight of his companion getting overwhelmed was unbearable. Consider that revenge for killing our guys. Akaku beamed. The Ijuka hissed in pain. I hate you damned Shinigamis. I'll make you pay for this, even if it kills me. Revenge, Ichigo thought to himself, bewildered for a moment. Then the thought of his fellow Hollows dying to these Shinigami warriors caused him to process the idea. Get him, Kenny. The pink-haired girl cheered, but before Kenpachi could make a killing blow to the smaller Hollow, a powerful white fist smashed into him. His eyes widened in surprise. I didn't even sense that. This white Jillian is definitely strong. The Ijuka seemed surprised by Ichigo's actions as the white Jillian grabbed him. Ichigo instinctively placed the Hollow on his shoulder before focusing his attention back on Kenpachi. The Squad 11 captain started to laugh. Nice move. You're just full of surprises, aren't you, Manos Grande? Jillian, retreat. We stand no chance against a Captain Shinigami, the Ijuka commanded. However, much to the smaller Hollow's surprise, Ichigo did not obey. Every one of the Shinigami present watched with anticipation as the white Jillian stared Kenpachi down. Come and get me, Zaraki roared with bloodlust. Doing just that, Ichigo practically soared through the air and attempted to pummel the Squad 11 captain. Kenpachi blocked his fist with his blade, but was pushed back a considerable distance by the overwhelming force. He swiftly ducked under a follow-up punch and attempted to slash Ichigo in half. However, much to his and everybody else's disbelief, it only cut Ichigo instead of cleaving through him. Kenpachi himself seemed enthusiastic. That's some tough skin you've got. I actually put some strength in that swing too. For some reason, Ichigo felt intense anger swelling inside of him at the condescending tone the warrior used against him. I'm not weak, Ichigo spoke angrily, quickly alarming everyone present. Akaku's jaw hit the ground. Did that Jillian just talk? This one's special Kenny. You gotta get him, Yakiru chanted with equal enthusiasm. The Ijuka on Ichigo's shoulder was the most surprised of all by his actions. Most Jillians don't speak, even the ones that gain dominant awareness. What's with White? He's more than just a normal Hollow. From out of nowhere, a short white-haired man appeared nearby. Captain Zaraki, I heard there was a Manos invasion. What's the situation? Captain Hitsugaya, Akaku said, surprised. What are you doing here? I'm here to help. Captain Commander's orders, Toshiro replied with a quick sigh at the end. Kenpachi simply chuckled. You came late, we killed almost all of them. Almost all of them. So are those the last two hollows? Toshiro asked as he examined the white Manos and the wounded Ijuka. He quickly furrowed his eyebrows. I was under the impression this was an emergency. Squad 11 couldn't handle this on their own. You say the old man sent you Bah. He loves overkill, I guess. Zaraki shrugged. That white Manos Grande is tougher than it looks. Captain Hitsugaya, it's trying to fight Captain Zaraki, a random Squad 11 member commented. Toshiro simply crossed his arms. Well, hurry up and finish it off then. Our orders are to neutralize the Ijuka Raptor. Yeah, I'll take care of it. Kenpachi chuckled before charging Ichigo with his sword reared back. This time he swung with much greater force after dodging Ichigo's swings. He was going straight for the mask. Moments before he got there, Ichigo grabbed him. Hitsugaya watched shocked. What the? Is Captain Zaraki messing around or did he really just let a Manos grab him? Kenpachi seemed surprised. You're fast, I'll give you that. Normally you overgrown Manos can't move for shit. Yakiru grimaced in pain as she felt herself being squeezed between Kenpachi and Ichigo's fist. Getting a closer look at Ichigo's mask, the Squad 11 captain could see his eyes more clearly. The red markings that went down the side accentuated him with a feral appearance. The hollow's haunting gold irises stared at Kenpachi almost evilly as Ichigo squeezed tighter. Kenpachi quickly broke free as he sliced through Ichigo's hand and backed off. He seemed a bit more serious as the hand immediately regenerated. Ichigo looked down at it for a moment before looking up and laughing. The sight of a Manos Grande laughing was disturbing to say the least as Hitsugaya reflexively reached for his blade's hilt. The white Jillian's laughter intensified as his hand fully reformed. Afterward, Ichigo held up his hand with the palm outstretched. Kenpachi cocked an eyebrow before he noticed a red beam charging in the hollow's palm. What the hell? He smirked. Captain Zaraki, don't let your guard down. Hitsugaya shouted. As the Sero charged in Ichigo's hand, he aimed it at Kenpachi. This one was just as large as the previous one, but this time it was black with a red outline instead of red with white. Right as he released his attack, Ichigo changed its trajectory at the last second, killing many of the Squad 11 members watching from the sidelines. Ichigo quickly arced it towards the vast majority of weaker Shinigami, killing many of them. Hitsugaya was alarmed, and angry to say the least. Damn it, Zaraki, what are you doing? Kill that thing now. Captain. The squad. Akaku shouted horrified. After his blast finished, Ichigo looked towards the Shinigami with malicious hatred brewing within him. He spoke one word which caused a sharp shiver to run down the survivors' spines: revenge. Kenpachi seemed indifferent to most of his squad dying, but had a look of disapproval. This fight was between us, why do you have to go and do something like that? Now I have to end this battle right away. Bankai. Hitsugaya shouted quickly, alarming the survivors. Out of nowhere, Rangaku appeared. Captain, what's going on? I scouted the area like you said and... Arg. Toshiro roared as he flew towards Ichigo, poised to kill him in one attack. He seemed angrier than Kenpachi about so many Shinigami deaths. However, before he could reach them, a massive garganta was torn open behind Ichigo by the Ijuka. He quickly fired a Sero with his remaining arm, slowing the encroaching captain. He shouted at Ichigo seriously, "Get out of here now. You're not strong enough to defeat them yet." For some reason, Ichigo felt obligated to obey as he backed away into the garganta and closed it behind himself. Kenpachi came charging along with Toshiro, both trying to stop him, but right as they reached him, his mask was all that was left visible in the closing garganta. "What's your name, Hollow?" Kenpachi asked, interested. Right before the garganta snapped shut, Ichigo spoke darkly, "White. ... Back in Hueco Mundo, Ichigo passed back through the garganta and soon found himself back inside the dark forest from before. The wounded Ijuka on his back let out a sigh of relief. Damn Shinigamis, I wasn't expecting them to send captains. They're normally too high and mighty to leave their precious little soul society. The Ijuka jumped off Ichigo's shoulder and landed on a nearby rock formation. Ichigo stared at him, unsure of what to do now. The Ijuka turned around slowly and growled bitterly, "You're a Jillian and you're already more powerful than I am. It seems like a waste for me to hold you back." The white Jillian cocked his head confused. The Ijuka looked up at him and sighed, You have that real killer instinct. I rather enjoyed the way you took those arrogant Shinigamis down a peg. You are indeed the most interesting Jillian I have ever seen. You're clearly destined for greatness." The hollow Ichigo said nothing as he did not fully understand where the conversation was leading. Raptor stared at him for a moment before explaining, "You are a Jillian, your next step in evolution is an Ijuka like me. But beyond that, is the elite Vasto Lords. Only the most powerful, unbreakable hollows have the will and the instinct to reach this level of evolution. If that display back there was any indication, then I know for a fact that you will become the most powerful hollow in all of Hueco Mundo. But remember this, you must take on an aspect and inherit a reason for doing so. What drives you beyond your own instinct? Revenge, anger." He continued to stare at the Ijuka for a moment before speaking, "Protect." The Ijuka seemed surprised by his response, "Protect me? You're strange for a hollow. You'll find that Hueco Mundo isn't a merciful place for the weak. Those that protect others become targets. Protecting me would have gotten you killed had you been weaker." Raptor, alive. Ichigo spoke the Ijuka's name for the first time, causing the smaller hollow to hang his head dejectedly. Raptor shook his head. "Don't bother remembering my name, I'm likely little more than a stepping stone on your evolution. I want you to do something for me, White, I want you to eat me." Ichigo had a hard time understanding the command and cocked his head again. The Ijuka sighed again, "If you wish to evolve then you will have to consume other hollows. If you wish to retain your individuality then you must never stop until you become a Vasto Lord." The white Jillian stared at him for a moment, unsure if he should obey the command or not. Raptor noticed his hesitation and sighed, "Do it. I just have one request, use your power to destroy Shinigamis." The Jillian stared at him indifferently, but Ichigo couldn't help but feel the idea was distasteful. Raptor clearly noticed his doubt and spoke sternly, "Follow your instincts, become strong." Become strong, Ichigo thought to himself. Suddenly a brief memory of the orange-haired human dying to a lesser hollow flashed through his mind. Not one moment of hesitation followed as picked up Raptor and consumed him whole. Ichigo quickly consumed the Ijuka and felt his powers grow. Yet as he consumed his fellow hollow, he felt a strange hunger overcome his senses. Despite just feasting, he was suddenly hungrier than before. He felt an indescribable narcotic feeling at gaining his fellow hollow's power. Before he could comprehend what was happening, he soon began to hunt down nearby Jillians and gorged himself in a cannibalistic feeding frenzy. Every time he ate another Jillian, he felt as if he could think clearer. Brief flashes of his mortal life would return on occasion, which only seemed to fuel his hunger more. This continued for a long undetermined amount of time. X Soul Society Squad 1 meeting. X. Captain Zaraki, I believe I misread your report. You say a white Jillian class Manos Grande was responsible for the deaths of 100 of your squad members. Captain Commander Yamamoto demanded sternly. Kenpachi nodded his head. Yeah, he was stronger and faster than the other Jillians, but he was pretty smart too. He even spoke. Apparently it was getting revenge against us for killing all of its fellow hollows. From what I understand, Squad 11 made quick work of their army, but the Ijuka and the white Jillian were giving them some trouble, Toshiro added with an evident distant tone in his voice. His explanation greatly surprised many of the other captains who found the idea of a hollow having complicated feelings preposterous. And this hollow was allowed to escape. Yamamoto practically bellowed. Hitsugaya quickly shook his head. Head captain, it retreated before we could reach it. I was prepared to kill it with my Bankai after Captain Zaraki failed to take it seriously. Kenpachi narrowed his gaze at the short white-haired captain. Something you wanna say to me? Nothing that should said in front of our peers, Toshiro countered with an angry stare. Yamamoto sighed angrily. Never underestimate any foe, ever. Your careless actions caused the deaths of many under your command, Captain Zaraki. I'll kill it the next time I see it. Don't you worry about it, old man, Kenpachi replied with a bloodthirsty grin. Like hell you will. Your ridiculous behavior at dragging out fights got people killed. If anything, I'll take care of it, Toshiro shouted. Both captains sent death glares at one another before Yamamoto quickly intervened. That is enough of this childish bickering. I want all the information you have on this hollow. I will decide how to deal with it accordingly. Hiraku shook his head. Geez, this white Manos Grande must have been something else. I'm surprised you didn't just kill it with one attack. Jillians aren't that strong compared to a captain. It actually survived a slash from my blade, Kenpachi noted as if it were an amazing feat. Before it fled to Hueco Mundo, the Jillian told us its name. It calls itself White, Toshiro spoke to Yamamoto. The captain commander nodded. I see, can you describe its appearance in detail to your fellow captains? Yes, head captain, it had a white robe instead of a black, making it very unique amongst Jillians. The mask was also strangely feral in appearance. It had red markings going down either side near its eyes. It also had forward-facing horns instead of the pointed nose most Jillians have. As you've heard already, it was capable of basic speech and was extremely fast. The attack it used to kill many Squad 11 members with was some kind of black Sero. That thing wouldn't have escaped if I was there. Even if I had to use my Bankai, Soifun stated seriously. Byakuya decided to speak up surprisingly. This creature will only become more powerful the longer we ignore it. I would make sure the ranks are informed of its likeness and report any sightings immediately. This hollow is going to be like the boogeyman for the young guys, Kiraku said with a slight hint of amusement. Amongst the captains, 3 in particular were silently surprised by the news of this strange hollow. Chusen thought for a moment. White, isn't that the name of the experimental hollow? I thought it was dead. Why would a hollow call itself White? Aizen was almost grinning at the news. So, that's where you've been, Ichigo Kurosaki. Perhaps I should delay my plans of betrayal until he fully evolves. I wasn't expecting Rukia Kuchiki to show up late. No matter. It would seem White has fused souls with Ichigo and become this new hollow. I will make him an Arrancar once he fully evolves. He will be the instrument of my victory. Everything always seems to go my way, even if plans change. He was quickly brought from his mental monologue by Jin. You seem deep in thought, Captain Aizen. The brown-haired man pushed up his glasses and shook his head. I am saddened by the loss of many fine young Shinagamis to this creature. It might be in our best interest to track it down. Yamamoto looked over at Aizen intently. Are you volunteering to find this hollow, Captain Aizen? I will do my best to monitor hollow sightings, head captain. Leave this matter to me, Aizen replied coolly. Very well. Since you are a third party, and a reliable captain, I will entrust this matter to you, Yamamoto stated, causing Kenpachi and Toshiro to scowl in disapproval. If there is nothing else, then this meeting is adjourned. Make sure all of your subordinates are aware of this hollow, White. Yamamoto ordered. Chapter 2. Evolution. Hueco Mundo. X. Ichigo had no way of knowing if it had been days or months since his feeding frenzy began. Yet as he consumed his final Jillian, he felt a strange sensation as his body began to shrink and transform. His thoughts seemed much clearer as his metamorphosis finished. Have I become like him? Am I an Ijuka now? He examined himself closely. He was now smaller than before, but possessed a very unusual appearance. Ichigo found himself now resembling a western dragon. His skin was pure white, but had many red markings adorning it. He had 4 legs with very sharp claws, a long white tail with a red tip. He also seemed to possess wings. 2 large forward-facing horns came from the side of his head and a large mane of hair that ran from his head all the way down his back. The hair was orange, clearly distinguishing him as a bright target. Though he couldn't see them, his eyes were still the same gold with black sclera. He looked at his appearance interested for a moment. I'm an Ijuka, there's no doubt. A brief flash of the orange-haired human caught his attention again. What was his name though? Is White my real name? The white dragon instantly noticed a nearby lesser hollow watching him from a distance. For some reason, he could sense things much better than he had been able to previously. Ichigo grinned maliciously. I'm still hungry. Many months later. The sound of wings flapping quickly caught the attention of every hollow in the forest as the terrifying Ijuka known as White flew looking for any unsuspecting prey. A large assembly of Jillians proved little match as he quickly swooped down and consumed them all one by one. As he consumed the last one, Ichigo growled annoyed. These weak souls can barely sat me for a minute. How am I going to become stronger eating these things anymore? I think I've scared all of the other Ijukas away. Where did they go? He took off again as he flew around the forest. It feels like an eternity since I woke up here. Is there no way out? Maybe I should go to the world of the living. His attention was brought back to reality as a strange source of Reiatsu caught his attention. He sniffed the air as he felt it. That's no hollow. Ichigo immediately flew towards the source of this spiritual energy, curious to see what it was. Upon reaching his destination, he noticed a very unusual sight. A man was there adorned in Shinigami attire with a mask on his face. He had a large number of lesser hollows surrounding him. The dragon Ijuka watched curiously as the man warded off waves of them. The warrior seemed to be gaining the upper hand until an Ijuka appeared. This hollow resembled a lanky bipedal creature with long claws and a strange-shaped head. The Ijuka growled at the man, "No more hiding, Shinigami, your days of killing our kind in the Manos forest is over." Right as the Ijuka charged in for an attack, a blade of some kind intercepted him. From out of nowhere 2 more Shinigamis appeared. With their combined effort, they made quick work of the Ijuka. As the masked one raised his blade for the killing blow, Ichigo swooped down and blocked him. All 3 of the robed warriors jumped back with evident fear as the hollow dragon in front of them shrieked. "What the hell is that thing? Is it another Ijuka? I've never seen an Ijuka like that before," one of them said, shocked. The downed Ijuka behind Ichigo quickly leapt to his feet and began to run away. It was evident he already knew who Ichigo was. He didn't make it far as the dragon chased and pinned him down. Ichigo wasted no time consuming the other Ijuka, increasing his power even more. Afterwards, he turned towards the 3 Shinigami who all stood there fear-stricken. The one in the mask was the first to speak. "I've heard rumors there was a powerful hollow in this forest by the name of White. That must be him. That Ijuka he just ate was the lord of the Manos forest. How are we going to fight that thing?" Another one panicked. "We need to move, now. We didn't come all this way to rescue you from Hueco Mundo just to die." The man shouted, but before he could make another move, Ichigo charged a Sero between his 2 horns. The Sero grew to an unbelievable size before firing in their direction. It blasted nearly everything in a frontal cone for miles. Afterward Ichigo laughed, "I hate Shinigamis." No trace of the Shinigamis could be seen afterward. Ichigo simply snorted before taking off into the air again. As he flew higher, he looked up. "I wonder how high this place goes. I've never fully explored the canopy of this forest." After a lot of flying, Ichigo finally emerged through an opening in the forest, finding himself under a darkened moonlit sky in a vast desert. He looked around curiously. "I had no idea there was a desert up here. Emptiness in all directions. Where should I go now? I need more souls to feast on." Seconds later he sensed a powerful presence in the distance. "What is that? Another Ijuka? Yes, I need more." He flew towards the power source at remarkable speed, and quickly reached it. Upon his arrival, the dragon Ijuka noticed a peculiar sight. A small group of Ijukas were feasting on several downed hollows. They had varying appearances, but from what he could sense, the one that looked like a panther was the strongest. All of their gazes shot up towards the dragon with awe. "Grimjow, look, that Ijuka looks powerful," one of them said. The panther roared with bloodlust, "Get him." As the group tried to assault Ichigo, he quickly tail-swept the panther, knocking it to the ground. The others were all too afraid to attack as Ichigo followed up by charging a Sero between his horns. Right before it was about to launch, however, the panther pounced on his face, throwing off the trajectory. Ichigo's Sero fired behind them into the distance. The blast was overwhelmingly powerful as its pressure resounded throughout the night sky. The panther tried to bite Ichigo, but failed as the dragon head-butted him. Grimjow was about to follow up with another attack before one of his allies called out to him, "Grimjow, we should retreat. This one's too strong. Like hell, we're retreating. We'll never become Vasto Lords unless we kill powerful hollows." The panther growled in annoyance. Ichigo finally spoke for the first time in a threatening manner. "I was wondering where all the other Ijukas were. I ate all of the ones in the Manos forest." One of the group's members had widened eyes. "Grimjow, back off. If he's who I think he is, then we don't stand a chance." "Who the hell are you supposed to be then?" the panther asked irritably. The dragon stared down at him carelessly. "My name is White." Grimjow soon noticed all of his companions running away. He reluctantly looked back at them before turning towards Ichigo. What are they so afraid of? It's not like any Ajuka in Hueco Mundo can match me anyway. I'm the king. King of what? There's nothing here to rule, Ichigo countered, causing the panther to stare at him distraught. Those damn eyes, stop looking down at me. I don't care how strong you are. Nothing's going to stop me from becoming a Vasto Lord. The panther roared. The dragon laughed, causing an echoing cackle to fill the air. I have yet to encounter another hollow strong enough to stop me. Care to put that theory to the test, cat? Grimjow pounced on Ichigo with anger radiating every fabric of his being. The panther rapidly slashed and bit, leaving large lacerations, but to his surprise, they healed unnaturally fast. Blue Raistu seemed to collect around the panther's claws as he pounced in for another flurry of swipes. Some hit, but many were blocked as Ichigo thrashed back against him, following up with a powerful tail swipe. Grimjow leapt back on his hind legs much to Ichigo's surprise and swished his front legs in an X pattern, unleashing tremendous blue arcs of energy similar to a Sero. Ichigo flew up and dodged them, but was surprised when the large cat leapt onto him midair. Grimjow did his best to tear, claw, and bite one of Ichigo's wings, but quickly found himself thrown off as Ichigo spun in a circle. He sunk his claws in deeper, trying to hold on, but was unable to as Ichigo's tail wrapped around his throat. He bit at it, trying to free himself, but was ineffective. Ichigo flaked the panther off, sending him spiraling to the ground. Looking down at the recovering panther below, he charged a Sero between his horns. Much to his surprise, the panther charged one from his mouth. The two Seros collided in a flashy display, but Grimjow quickly found Ichigo's was much stronger as the pressure began to crush him. In a moment of inspiration, he ceased his attack before leaping away in time to not get hit by it. Ichigo landed on the ground looking around for the panther, and was genuinely surprised as it dove out of the sand attempting to bite his neck. Unfortunately, Grimjow wasn't fast enough as Ichigo's front leg backhanded him away. He quickly jumped back and panted heavily. You're strong, White, I'll give you that, but I've never encountered a foe I couldn't defeat. I'm the king. Not anymore, I'm the king now. Ichigo shot back as he dove towards the panther at terrifying speed. Grimjow could barely brace himself in time as Ichigo sunk his teeth into the large cat. He roared in pain as Ichigo flew higher into the air, biting harder. In a last-ditch effort, Grimjow writhed in a berserk frenzy, clawing rapidly for freedom. He managed to break free right before Ichigo smashed him into the ground. Blood was leaking from the panther Ajuka's wounds as he limped a considerable distance away. Damn you, White, I won't be killed, not now. Not after all the fighting I've done. Grimjow roared angrily. The dragon cocked his head at him before speaking. What makes you think I'm going to kill you? The panther gave him a confused expression. What the hell are you talking about? Ichigo simply shrugged. You're the first opponent I've encountered who actually put up a halfway decent fight. You've got more willpower than any other hollow I've encountered so far. I'd say that alone is reason enough to spare your life. Don't you pity me? Damn it. Grimjow growled. It's not pity, it's respect. Would you rather die for no reason here and now? He countered. The panther was silent for a moment before sighing, I guess not. Ichigo was about to say something else before he sensed an extremely powerful source of Reiatsu closing in on him. Grimjow seemed to notice as well as his eyes turned towards the direction of the incoming hollows. The large cat simply sighed. It seems you've attracted quite the crowd. That spiritual pressure is coming straight from Las Noches. I'd be wary about going near the hollows from that place. It might be in your best interest to leave as well. Las Noches? Ichigo questioned, confused. Grimjow looked at him dumbfounded. Yeah, the palace, it's where one of the Vasto Lords is. He took up residence some time back. He likes to come out here and kill aspiring Ajukas for sport. I've yet to encounter a Vasto Lord. I wouldn't mind testing the strength of one, Ichigo chuckled. Suit yourself, White, I guess I'll take your offer and leave with my life. Grimjow finally replied, shaking his head at the dragon. Without another word, the panther took off in the direction of his subordinates. Before he got too far away, he turned back to face Ichigo. The name's Grimjow, by the way, remember it, White. If you survive, I hope to fight you again one day. There can only be one king. Shortly after Grimjow left, the arrival of a very large group of Ijukas showed up. Leading them was a robed skeleton of some kind who had a crown on his head. Ichigo looked at him curiously. He looks almost human compared to the others, despite being a skeleton. His power feels ridiculously strong. Is he a Vasto Lord? The skeleton King Hollow examined the dragon. Are you the one responsible for that sorrow just now? The dragon looked at him indifferently, causing the crowned skeleton to cackle. You will speak when I ask a question, Ijuka, do you understand? Who are you? Ichigo finally asked curiously. Suddenly the skeleton drew a colossal axe and pointed it at him. Kneel before your superior. I am the king of Hueco Mundo. You're not the first hollow I've encountered to claim something like that. What makes you think you're king of anything here? What makes you my king? Ichigo asked threateningly. The skeleton growled at him menacingly. I am Baragon, a Vasto Lord. I will make you die for your arrogance. Kill him. Suddenly many of his Ijuka underlings leapt for Ichigo from all sides. He moved incredibly fast as he took each one down with tail and claw swipes. As he was doing this, he charged a red and white Sero between his horns and aimed it at Baragon. The attack hit much to his Ijuka entourage's surprise. It didn't kill him like Ichigo expected, however. This was the first hollow he had ever encountered to survive a direct hit from his Sero. Baragon laughed at his reaction. You expect attacks like that to be effective against me? I'm king for a reason. The Vasto Lord grabbed his axe and flew towards Ichigo, ready to behead him. Much to his surprise, however, Ichigo impaled him with one of his horns. The dragon roared furiously as he charged a black and red Sero between his horns. Baragon attempted to release a strange miasma as Ichigo's Sero grew larger. It seemed to negate the attack's brunt force but was quick to launch the Vasto Lord away. Ichigo felt his horns start to deteriorate from contact with the miasma, but much to every one of Baragon's followers, surprised the horn regenerated faster than it could deteriorate. Baragon himself seemed bewildered by it. What the? That attack just now. I can see why other hollows would fear it, Ichigo spoke calmly. The Vasto Lord shook his head. You should be dead. Nobody can withstand time itself. Well, nobody except for me apparently, Ichigo said wickedly. The king of Hueco Mundo gripped his axe tighter. You think you're the first hollow to challenge my rule? You're not even a Vasto Lord, and I've killed them too. You keep saying you're the king. King of what? This empty desert. These mindless weaklings surrounding us. You can claim whatever you like, Baragon, but in the end, you're nothing but empty words fading from my memory, Ichigo taunted. Lord Baragon, I believe I know who this hollow is. His description matches the scourge of the Manos forest. That hollow is White, the Devourer. One of Baragon's Ijuka lieutenants spoke worriedly. Shut your mouth, Ggio. This arrogant creature will die for even humoring the thought that he could ever stand on my level. Baragon announced angrily. I will stand above your level right after I turn you into dust. Ichigo howled as he flew towards the king. Baragon swiftly ducked under the dragon's massive sweep and swung his axe with both hands, cleaving Ichigo dead center in the chest. Baragon pushed the axe deeper as he held it in Ichigo's flesh. This time, his body was deteriorating faster than it could regenerate. The king of Hueco Mundo grinned almost triumphantly as he believed himself already victorious. Much to his surprise, however, Ichigo grabbed the Vasto Lord with both of his front legs and pointed both horns directly at Baragon's bony head. Drawing as much power as he possibly could, Ichigo charged another Sero between his horns. This time, however, it seemed as if it was absorbing all the nearby reishi, causing it to swell to an enormous size. Before Baragon could do any more damage to him, Ichigo released the attack at point-blank range, causing unbelievable damage to Baragon and everything behind him for miles. His body appeared greatly damaged as half his face was blown off as well as both arms. The king didn't get up for a moment, greatly alarming his underlings. Ichigo's face was visibly surprised when Baragon began to regenerate. He wasted no time flying away shortly afterward. As he flew higher in the air, he shook his head annoyed. Damn, I wasn't expecting everything to be so powerful up here. I'm really going to have to watch my back now. I won't be able to kill him until I become a Vasto Lord. Maybe for now, it's best that I do what Grimjow said, and stay away from Las Noches, Ichigo concluded. After getting a considerable distance away, his body slowly began to replenish its lost sections. Ichigo felt relief as he touched down and took a breather. He was deep in thought as he watched the last of his wounds heal. Unfortunately, he still felt constant pain in the areas as if his body was fighting against the miasma. It left a blackened and nasty scar clearly reminding him of where Baragon's axe struck. If it wasn't for my regenerative powers, I'd have died countless times now. Or worse, he would have halted my evolution. I'm still in pain from that cheap shot. I can see why so many follow him. After a brief respite he thought to himself, so many others had the capability, but were in the wrong place at the wrong time. One wrong move here and I'm dead. I should get my arrogance in check. ... Many months later, Ichigo had been playing things safer during the past few months. The more time he spent on the surface, the sooner he began to realize that he was far too noticeable. Every hollow, even remotely powerful, wanted a piece of him. Many were too afraid to fight alone, much to his annoyance. His orange hair and intimidating appearance had a certain presence about them, as it seemed to have drawn countless numbers of hunting parties. It seemed as if getting the glory of killing him was a prize that everyone wanted. Thankfully none of Baragon's underlings had even attempted to come after him again, much to his approval. They were likely too afraid since they had seen his power firsthand. There was of course no denying how lucky he had been to not encounter any other Vasto lords in the past weeks, but Ichigo couldn't help but feel like he was always being followed. It made it impossible to ever relax or sleep, with the fear of being ambushed ever present in his mind. On several occasions he had run into remarkably powerful Ijukas like himself, but they almost never attacked him head-on. Ichigo landed on a dune and took a breather as he looked up towards the moon. For some reason, it was the most comforting sight in Hueco Mundo. In fact, he loved staring at it so much that he sometimes wondered how he ever lived for so long in the Manos forest without its comforting light. He was quickly drawn out of his bliss as the sound of footsteps caught his attention. He jerked his head towards the source and spotted a hollow carrying a weapon of some sort. It had 4 legs similar to that of a horse or deer, but waist up, its body appeared human. A skull mask completely covered the face, but he could see aquamarine hair flowing from behind the mask. This hollow appeared feminine due to the sight of curves as well. It didn't take him long to figure out that this was a Vasto Lord due to its small size but incredible Reiatsu. The female Vasto Lord approached him cautiously, watching his eyes follow her. She slowly circled around in front of him and looked at the wound on his chest. He couldn't tell underneath the mask, but Ichigo had a feeling she was frowning. The female Vasto Lord spoke sadly, "Another poor soul poisoned by Baragon. It's remarkable you haven't died to it yet." He gave her a bewildered expression as she gently placed a hand on his chest, feeling his blackened wound. "Your body is fighting it, but the constant regeneration is clearly straining you." "Who are you? What do you want?" Ichigo asked defensively. She jabbed her weapon into the ground next to him and held her arms up. "Calm yourself, Ijuka, I mean you no harm. I'm already a Vasto Lord. I have no reason to attack you." He immediately brushed her off before backing away with a poised glare. "Don't touch me." Before he could react, however, the female Vasto Lord opened her mouth fully and hacked a large wad of spit directly on his wound. He immediately took it the wrong way and began to charge a Sero between his horns. He fired it without hesitation but was shocked when the Vasto Lord simply swallowed the Sero. She tilted her head to the right and released the swallowed Sero into the distance. Ichigo simply stared dumbfounded as the female hollow glanced back at him. He was in a state of disbelief. Damn it. These Vasto Lords are ridiculously strong. She negated my Sero entirely. Relax, Ijuka, the female hollow sighed as she took several steps closer. He stood there frozen as she reached up and began to smear her saliva over his wound. Much to his shock, the blackened wound inflicted by Baragon slowly began to fade. His tension eased slightly as he allowed her to continue, but he stared warily, ready for any sign of deception. She spit on his wound again and continued to massage it until finally the blackened wound was gone. Ichigo was truly at a loss of words. This immensely powerful Vasto Lord not only just enfeebled his attack, but healed his wound as well. After a brief and very awkward silence he finally spoke. "Why? What are you doing this for? I've been watching you for a while. You're the one they call White." It was very brave of you to challenge a Vasto Lord as an Ejuka, especially Baragon. I admire your courage, the female Vasto Lord spoke pleasantly. You've been following me, he asked with a tone of displeasure. Off and on, but never for long. I simply tracked you down after hearing about what you did against Baragon. You're all the talk amongst the higher-ups in Hueco Mundo. I've seen Vasto Lords challenge Baragon before, and fail miserably. None have ever succeeded in even wounding him, which is why most hollows in Hueco Mundo fear the king. Only the most powerful Vasto Lords don't, but they don't really care about challenging his rule, she explained. You still haven't told me who you are, Ichigo interrupted. My name is Nalil Tu Odelschwenk, but you can call me Nell, she replied. Nell, thanks for healing me. Though I'm really curious why you would do such a thing. What's your angle? The dragon questioned seriously. Nell simply shrugged. I just thought I'd help you is all. Why? Helping others here is a sign of weakness, he said disapprovingly. She shook her head at his remark. You don't truly believe that, otherwise you would have slain that panther Ejuka. So you have been stalking me, what are you implying then, Nell? He asked imposingly. She picked up her lance and began to walk away. You won't survive in this place all by yourself. And even if you could, would you really want to? The path of solitude leads to self-destruction. You'll never fill the hole in your heart with that attitude. Her words seemed to cut deep as he growled angrily, and what's that supposed to mean? You can have all the power in Hueco Mundo, but what does it mean if you have nothing to spend it on? Think about it, White, she said softly before disappearing. Ichigo huffed at her remark. What utter nonsense, relying on others is too dangerous in this place. I don't need anyone. Though right as he finished his thought he began to think about all the hunting parties that had come after him. The dragon looked down for a moment, though all of them travel in groups. Even that Grimjow guy had a pack of followers. Baragon's got an army practically, maybe she's right. He briefly remembered his time as a Jillian and his epic encounter against the Shinigamis there. Ichigo tried to recall the feeling that gave him so much drive to fight. He had been fighting and surviving in Hueco Mundo for so long that it was difficult to recall. After a minute, Ichigo's eyes widened as if a revelation had just occurred. His memories flashed back to his time as a human. He had 2 sisters, he couldn't remember their names, let alone his own, but he wanted to protect them. To protect, didn't I tell Raptor that a long time ago? He wondered to himself. These thoughts were haunting to the dragon Ejuka as he aimlessly flew for hours in search of his next meal. Noticing a cave near a large rock formation, he decided to risk going there for some rest. Ichigo touched down softly and studied the area warily for any occupants. There appeared to be none, but he couldn't help but feel as if there was a reason for that. Nevertheless, he ventured inside the cave and continued to study it for close to half an hour. Finally deciding it was safe enough to rest in, he sprawled against the side of the cave wall in a defensive position. His eyes closed slowly as he began to relax for the first time in ages. Hollows didn't necessarily require sleep, but the lack of it was clearly not in one's best interest if they wished to remain vigorous and alert. Ichigo rested for what felt like days, which in reality could have only been a few hours. It was impossible to tell time in Hueco Mundo. Nevertheless, his slumber was cut short when he soon felt something slithering on him. His eyes shot open just in time to realize a large bony centipede like Ejuka had him wrapped. It was alarmed by his awakening and instantly tried to constrict him. He effortlessly broke free from the creature before a scorpion Ejuka burst from the ground. It tried to grab him with its claws, and quickly followed up with a stinger attack. Ichigo's tail wrapped the scorpions at the last second, preventing entry as his front legs easily overpowered the scorpion's claws. He tossed both insect-like Ejukas aside easily and distanced himself to the cave entrance where he could see them better. Despite their different forms, their masks appeared identical. He examined the 2 Ejukas curiously. Though they resembled insects, they had almost human-shaped torsos near their fronts. The centipede Ejuka's legs were similar to bladed spikes. She also seemed to possess 2 large tentacle-like appendages for arms. The scorpion Ejuka had scorpion claws on her lower body but had almost human-like arms with bladed extensions coming from her torso. Their masks were identical, which was quite an unusual coincidence. Ichigo couldn't help but admire their appearance, these two would be intimidating to lesser Ejukas. The centipede one spoke first. Damn, he woke up, you should have been ready Mainoli. Easier said than done, lolly, I wasn't expecting him to react that fast, the scorpion replied. There's no excuse sister, our ambushes never fail. You hesitated, Lolly shouted at her sister. The scorpion examined Ichigo more closely. Wait, that's not just any dragon Ejuka. Do you see that orange hair? Then that means, he's white. What? Don't be ridiculous. I'm sure there are plenty of dragon Ejukas with orange hair, plus if that guy was actually white then we'd already be dead. Her sister shot back. Normally, he would have simply killed both of them without mercy, but he couldn't help but feel amused by their bickering. Not to mention the coincidental fact that they had identical masks. Ichigo finally interrupted their arguing. Actually, my name is White. Oh shit, Mainoli said worriedly. We're screwed then, Lolly said with widened eyes. The dragon sighed at their behavior. Am I that infamous? What are you kidding me? Everyone in Hueco Mundo knows who you are. Lots of the Ejukas are submitting to Baragon just to get protection against you in Las Noches, Lolly replied. Ichigo carelessly snorted. Whatever, I'm leaving. So wait, you're not going to kill us? Mainoli asked surprised. He briefly glanced back. I can if you want me to, I mean you did just try to kill me. We're so sorry, please don't kill us, White. We don't like King Baragon either. Mainoli tried to justify. Her sister seemed annoyed by Manali's quick submissiveness and huffed. Don't kiss his ass, Mainoli, he'll probably just kill us anyway. So you two don't like Baragon either huh? Why's that? Ichigo asked curiously. Lolly scoffed at his question. What kind of stupid question is that? You clearly haven't been on the surface for long if you don't know what kind of ruler he is. If his terrible personality is anything to go by then I would assume I do know, Ichigo responded. So why aren't you going to kill us? Lolly taunted, causing her sister's eyes to widen with concern. Lolly. Don't antagonize him. He shrugged. You're both weak, eating you wouldn't really get me any closer to becoming a Vasto Lord. Why you? Lolly began but her sister quickly silenced her. Thank you for your mercy, White, we'll be rooting for your success. Yeah, maybe I'll see you two again one day, he replied before taking off into the sky. After he left, Mainoli sighed in relief. You idiot, why were you trying to provoke him? Don't you know how powerful he is? He took on King Baragon and he's not even a Vasto Lord. So what? Just because he's strong doesn't mean we have to kiss his ass, Mainoli. Plus I don't really think he's as strong as the rumors say he is. Otherwise he'd have succeeded, Lolly stated. If you say so, her sister sighed. Deep in the desert several days later. After dispatching a powerful Ejuka hunting party, Ichigo felt a strange sensation. As he consumed them, his body began to glow. A pillar of Reiatsu radiated from him as his entire body was engulfed in power. He felt himself shrinking the more and more the power condensed. His dragon-like form soon dissipated into a now bipedal, demonic-looking creature. He had 2 blades for hands and his feet possessed talon-like nails. He no longer had wings or a tail in this more humanoid form. His mask appeared the same, and kept his trademark forward-facing horns. Long orange hair reached all the way down to his back, and many of his red markings were now much darker. His pale hide from the waist down was now covered in what looked like armor skin. It was black and had many dark red markings covering it. Both arms had an almost natural-looking bony pauldrons that reached from his shoulders all the way down to his bladed arms. Bony white extensions came from his elbows. His torso remained unarmored, showing the natural paleness of his skin. Markings all seemed to accentuate around the hollow hole in his chest as well. Ichigo looked at his blade-like arms curiously. What the hell are these? Blade fists. As he receded his power, the 2 blade arms receded, revealing clawed white hands. He stared at them interested. That seems useful. He looked at his new appearance with disbelief. If I've changed this much then that must mean, I finally did it. I'm a Vasto Lord, yes, ha ha. Ichigo soon began to laugh in an almost maniacal joy. Finally, he shrieked joyously. Though in this moment of achievement, he couldn't help but feel an overwhelming emptiness soon after. Now what am I supposed to do? A long moment of silence passed that felt like an eternity. Nalil's words echoed in his head as he thought for a moment, what should I spend my power on? His attention was brought back to reality as he turned his gaze towards Las Noches' direction. It was nowhere in sight, but he knew which way it was. Berrigan needs to die. However, before he could even move, a strange hollow landed in front of him. It had unusual resemblance to a bat-human hybrid, but possessed no mouth. Ichigo stared at the creature curiously. It was difficult to read this hollow's reaction, but Ichigo was especially captivated by its haunting green eyes. Part of him wondered if this other hollow could even speak. It didn't speak as he expected, but the hollow's eyes clearly indicated that it appeared curious about him. It seemed especially curious about his own reaction. Neither one said a word to the other as they slowly circled, locking gazes. What's with this hollow? He's definitely a Vasto Lord like me, but what's with that mask? He doesn't have a mouth. He be must powerful then, a hollow with no need to feed would have to be. Ichigo thought as his golden black eyes continued staring at the bad Vasto Lord. The other Vasto Lord stared at Ichigo with unrefined curiosity. I sensed his transformation from miles away. He must have just evolved. He looks quite strange, but his hole, and his skin, they're similar to mine. Ulquiorra thought. Ichigo half expected the other hollow to attack or challenge him as it slowly approached. The creature's green eyes seemed tragically empty. The bat-like Vasto Lord reached out and tried to touch his hollow hole, which seemed unusual to him. He slowly grabbed the other hollow's wrist and directed an uncertain suspicion through his haunting golden gaze. What are you doing? Ulquiorra stared at Ichigo's hollow hole before looking down at his own. The sight was unexpected. For some reason, Ichigo's instincts told him that this creature had an instinctual affinity for him since they were similar in many ways. Both were extremely white, both had hollow holes dead center in their chest, and both were Vasto Lords. In nature this would be akin to two creatures of the same species encountering another one of their kind for the first time. Ulquiorra seemed shocked when Ichigo mentioned this. We're the same, aren't we? You're a loner too. He isn't afraid of me, he isn't affected by my power, he says we're the same. Ulquiorra thought to himself, trying to process the idea. I guess you can't speak, but that's fine. Where are you from? I've never encountered a hollow like you before, Ichigo replied as he released Ulquiorra's wrist. The green-eyed hollow stared at him briefly before pointing into the distance. It was the opposite direction of Hueco Mundo. What's out there? Ichigo wondered aloud. Ulquiorra pointed at his hollow hole, which Ichigo immediately figured was the creature's way of saying, nothing. Are you going there? Ichigo asked. The bat-like Vasto Lord nodded his head. This is the first hollow who's ever tried to communicate with me like this. Why is he curious about me? Why am I curious about him? Do you mind if I go with you? Ichigo requested. He didn't know why, but for some reason, his instincts compelled him to stay with this other Vasto Lord. Despite its unusual personality, Ichigo actually enjoyed this other hollow's passive disposition. Plus, he wasn't sure how rare Vasto Lords really were. For two to encounter each other like this was something interesting. Ulquiorra's eyes had confusion written all of them. Why does he want to go with me? Nothing ever even wants to come near me. Does he really want my company? I've never had a companion before. I've been alone for a long time. I wouldn't mind the company of somebody like you. Neither one of us have a reason to kill a fellow Vasto Lord, I assume. Not to mention, you seem like somebody worth my time, Ichigo stated. The green-eyed creature nodded briefly. Inwardly, Ulquiorra couldn't describe what he was feeling. He said somebody, and not something. This is unusual. Why would he desire my company? I can't even speak to him. This creature is very strange. Reluctantly, Ulquiorra left and motioned for Ichigo to follow him. The bat-like lord couldn't help but ponder how things led to this. He's not afraid of me, like the others, so few can even stand in my presence. He seems unaffected. I can't understand his reason for wanting to follow me. Does he hope to gain a better understanding of what to do now that he's piqued his power? Ichigo quickly caught up with the other hollow and glanced over at him as they flew. Why did you approach me, by the way? Did you want to gauge my power, or were you just curious? Ulquiorra pointed behind them and then towards Ichigo before shaking his head. The orange-haired hollow sighed. I see, you were looking for something and just so happened to sense me. The other Vasto Lord nodded. The more time he spent with Ulquiorra, the more he wished the other Vasto Lord could speak to him. Ichigo cocked his head. Do you support Baragon? Do you know anything about the other Vasto Lords? Ulquiorra's eyes had a clear lack of concern written in them as he shook his head. He made a few gestures as he pointed to Ichigo and himself. He had a hard time comprehending the gestures, but from what he could surmise, this creature was implying that he did not know other hollows minus Ichigo. Ichigo said nothing else as he simply continued following the green-eyed hollow into the distance. This continued for a long time. Ulquiorra and Ichigo would often make eye contact as they tried to understand the other. The bat-like Vasto Lord had an almost saddened look in his eyes as he would often look between Ichigo and the distant desert ahead. I wonder how long this will continue. It seems so strange to be in the company of another. I don't know what to do. Does he expect me to take him somewhere? He did ask about where I was born. Maybe I should show him. Maybe he would understand. Deciding on this, Ulquiorra continued to lead Ichigo further and further into the deep outskirts of Hueco Mundo. Ichigo had no way of knowing how long they had been traveling, but now that he was a Vasto Lord, he didn't feel the overwhelming hunger he had before. It felt like an eternity since the two set off on their journey. Very rarely were words spoken, but Ichigo had grown accustomed to the other hollow's way of silently gesturing things. Though this was unusual at first, a silent synchronization between their thoughts seemed to occur. Ulquiorra had been leading him for a long time to what Ichigo could only assume was where he came from. Part of Ichigo rather enjoyed this other hollow's companionship. Despite their limited communication, he couldn't help but feel as if they belonged together. Having another to stand on your level and not be an enemy was something neither had ever experienced prior to their meeting. Though during this time, Ichigo couldn't help but wonder how this other Vasto Lord came into being. I'm the only other hollow he knows. I wonder if he doesn't know any others because he's too powerful and they're afraid to come near him. His inability to speak certainly wouldn't help in that aspect. This is unusual though. If he was born this far out, was he ever in the Manos forest? Are the hollows out here different than the ones closer to Las Noches? After a long, silent, but not unpleasant journey, the Vasto Lord duo arrived at what Ichigo could only describe as the end of the world in Hueco Mundo. He and Ulquiorra both stood on a cliff edge overlooking a massive black pit. It looked as if it were a sea of emptiness, a void. The green-eyed hollow looked over at him and pointed to itself before motioning back at the blackened abyss below. Ichigo glanced down below, immediately understanding. You were born here. Ulquiorra nodded. The bat creature looked down below and back at Ichigo before holding out his hand. Show me, was all Ichigo said as he grabbed the other Vasto Lord's hand. It seemed Ulquiorra didn't want them to get separated once they entered it. They both ventured down for what felt like days. Their white forms, glowing eyes, and Ichigo's orange hair were the only sight the other could see during the descent. Upon reaching what he could only assume was the bottom, he could sense strange shadow-like beings similar in appearance to Ulquiorra. Ulquiorra held up his finger and charged a whitened green cerro, illuminating them completely. Their silhouettes were difficult to make out in the darkness, but he soon realized they were all black as Ulquiorra's cerro shined light on them. They also had mouths unlike Ulquiorra. Ichigo was quick to understand. The longer they spent here, the more he began to understand this other hollow. The black hollows all fled from Ulquiorra's green cerro, which was the only light that could be seen in this darkness. After they left, Ichigo could feel the other hollow clutching onto him tighter. He doesn't want to lose me in here. Is he afraid to be alone? Ichigo wondered curiously. Ichigo spoke up slowly. I understand now. You were born in this place. You're not like the others, you're different. The saddened, despairing green eyes were unreadable as Ulquiorra and Ichigo locked gazes. The orange-haired Vasto Lord shook his head. You don't have to live in this pit, come with me. Being a hollow is difficult enough, you shouldn't have to live alone like this. In that moment, Ulquiorra felt a very strange emotion which was completely alien to him. What is this feeling? It's as if a heavy weight is being lifted from my chest. Does he really want us to remain companions? I had never considered what he would say after showing him this place. Without warning, Ichigo began to ascend back up through the darkness, still holding onto Ulquiorra. Time seemed to pass very slowly as the two Vasto Lords flew higher. During this time, Ulquiorra pondered heavily on that situation. How long have we been traveling together? It feels as if I have known him forever. Why did I bring him here anyways? Why do I want him to understand me? He says he does. He says I'm different from the others, but like him. This darkness, this emptiness, he says I don't have to accept it. What else is there? What drives him to live? As they flew up, Ulquiorra stared at the fiery orange hair flowing above him and the faint glow of moonlight barely reaching them. The horned hollow looked down at him right before they reached the cliffside. Ichigo turned around and stared at Ulquiorra with the bright moonlight illuminating him. The Bat Vasto Lord could not describe the feelings that surged within him in that very moment, but he looked at Ichigo as if he were the moon in the sky. Perhaps I can find some meaning in this emptiness, through him. Another like myself, one who accepts what I am, and lives on. But I don't understand him. Who is he? Ulquiorra finally concluded as the two landed on the cliffside. Ichigo turned around as he looked over the dark abyss one more time. The Vasto Lord growled in disgust as he charged a Sero between his horns. Ulquiorra backed away slightly as he watched with curiosity. What is he doing? The Sero between Ichigo's horns was colossal to say the least. He howled furiously as he fired the devastating red beam into the darkness. Ulquiorra was impressed by the display of power, but even more so as he noticed the Sero illuminate the landscape below. During his attack, which seemed to last for minutes, Ichigo howled as furiously as he could. Does this place anger him? Why? What point is there in hating nothingness? Ulquiorra wondered. After his attack finished, Ichigo faced his companion again. This place disgusts me. Don't ever return here. This soul-sucking pit should be buried. You don't belong here. Nobody does. What is he talking about? The Bat Vasto Lord tried to understand. His concept on the emotion of empathy was very confusing as he tried to process the idea of Ichigo feeling angered on his behalf. Ever since I've become a hollow, I've tried to understand what I'm looking for. What drives me to live? All hollows seek whatever this thing is. You're no different. It's impossible to find it in that abyss. I don't know what you're looking for, but I do know it doesn't exist down there. Silence passed for a long moment as Ulquiorra seemed deep in thought. The hollow took one last look at the darkness below before turning towards Ichigo. I don't know what I'm looking for, but neither does he. Why does he not despair though? Don't give up on seeking this thing. There's more to life and death than this horrid place. Ichigo spoke again as he turned away from the blackened pit. Ulquiorra felt a strange feeling upon hearing Ichigo's words. My instincts were right to draw me away from this place the first time. I never would have met him otherwise. Without another word, both departed in the opposite direction of the pit. Ichigo looked over again and spoke distantly. I don't know what you seek, but I will help you understand it by showing you the place where I came from. Have you ever been to the world of the living? Ulquiorra shook his head. I've never imagined how the mortal world would be. Is that where he is from? I'll show you, Ichigo stated as the two continued flying. Not really much to say about this chapter. I wanted to show Ichigo's different encounters with some familiar faces here. As for some of the technical stuff, I know Nell isn't really a confirmed Vasto Lord, but for the sake of simplicity, she is in this FIC. I tried to stay true to the individual personalities of each of the hollows. As for Ichigo's Vasto Lord form, well, I wanted to give him the sword arms that White originally had when it attacked his mother. I thought that'd be fitting since he doesn't have a Zanpakuto. Anyways, thanks for reading. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.